Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the last weekly episode of the ATL Falcons UK podcast. We will be hanging around ad hoc, but after tonight, the boys are going to have a well-deserved break, a little bit of therapy, and then we'll pick it back up in the off-season instead. We've got the gang together. We've got every single person here tonight. We're going to run through what we've seen from the season that's just passed, what we need looking ahead to next season. We're going to give out the MVP award, the offensive player of the year, the defensive player of the year, and all that jazz. So, boys, welcome to the last show. How are you all doing? Stunning. Okay, and on that note, we will end the show. Thank you all for watching.
I think it's kind of bittersweet, right? Because there's part of me that goes, look, had the closure, we had the therapy last week. It fills me with delight, but also, kind of a bit of dismay that, we would have ended up playing the Commanders again. Not that I think, we took them to the wire in the first game, but they made, I don't want to say light work, but they had a fairly standard game of football against the Bucks last night, and I don't know, it just kind of feels like it's another awful season for what has to be considered an awful division, which we could have taken advantage of had we have done things a bit better. So don't get us wrong, I'm absolutely delighted to see the Bucks out, but I just another frustrating season, which promised so much, and I think that had it not been for Michael Penix, not only do I think it could have been actually quite an embarrassing season, but actually, he provided quite a significant sparkle, which I think we all as fans really, really needed to see. So I'm not entirely disheartened, but not disheartened, but definitely disappointed.
Absolutely, completely understandable. Cal, how are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. I've been watching all the playoff games. It's obviously disappointing that we didn't end up in it, but
yeah,
it's glad to see the Bucks out, like Mark said. So that's one positive from playoff weekend. Season-wise, where do you start? You go 6-3 in the first 2 months. The fan base is happiest I've ever seen it. Probably been Danny, especially maybe Mark, from his first season. He just went downhill from there, literally completely downhill. Like Mark said, it's the easiest division to win.
Yeah.
Should have won it. There's literally no excuse not to win this division, I don't think. Into the 4th season in the end. You quarterback change after that with 3 more games to go, which doesn't look good. Not very much else to say. The highlight is Penix will be quarterback 1. That sort of lighten the mood of the fan base to a point. Everyone's still disappointed, but changes have obviously been made, which we'll obviously hit on soon, and there'll be plenty more in the off season. But yeah, just very disappointed after such a great start. 6-3 would be the Eagles. And I still don't know how we beat the Eagles, but we ended up a few good wins, and then once again 8 and 9, and me and Danny still haven't seen a winning season.
But we were so close. We were
Yeah.
like
so close.
we were super close.
But we got that
Liam,
extra
last but not
2
least.
draft picks or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a bit. Well, we kind of know how it's been, really. We knew going into that sort of final game that we needed a bit of a small sort of miracle that we didn't get, but we knew that it kind of the problems were earlier on in the season. I do think, even though we would have been considered possibly the weakest in the playoffs when it got there, or one of the weakest teams in the playoffs certainly. It sort of give the Commanders the game to then possibly beat them. Well, I think the Bucs should have won last night. Really, I think without that fumble to give the ball back in the fourth quarter, they probably would have won. For me, not that they were essentially good, but the Commanders weren't that good either. It was like a scrappy game, I would call it.
Yeah.
And we could have been pretty competitive in that game, which makes it a little bit more annoying because that potentially could have been a playoff victory. Which we talk about being in the playoffs is one thing, and winning in the playoffs is a whole matter. The things to build on, but ultimately, something's gone wrong again, hasn't it? Really, in a few areas you could point that at, but again, as a franchise, we've not got something right, which is for us, it's all too familiar to to have one or two pieces just missing that might make us not the team that we could have been, and that's happened quite a few times over the last few seasons.
It is. It has. It's all too familiar at this point. It's almost like routine. The only difference is, like you all said, we showed a little bit of promise, and that hurts more. If you start poor and you finish poor, that's fine. I can accept that one. Before we move on, I'm going to jump in the comments a little second. We've got quite a few on the go. Keith saying he reckons that we could have give the Commanders a go-in. They weren't brilliant. They weren't brilliant, but we've not been brilliant all season, so I don't know about that, but we'll see. Let's have a look down. Cal, this one's for you, and I didn't know if it was just my computer, so I didn't say anything, but Paul says, Cal the Alien has joined us by the sounds of it. Your mic was a little bit hit and miss, but I didn't know if it was just my computer. And then we've got Christian saying, boom. Was impressed by Penix Jr. versus the Commanders. Cousins, it seems, was not the same post-injury. It does seem that way. Obviously, at this point now, Penix is the way forward. So let's move into that conversation because that's on our agenda for the night. So the curious tale of Kirk Cousins. What do you do with him? Because Raheem and Terry have both had interviews where they've sat and they've said they'd be happy, I quote, happy for him to sit as QB2. Liars.
Well, hang on, right? Just let's hold up on that. So you signed a contract, you're getting paid a lot of money. First of all, you do it.
Mark, you've muted.
No.
You back?
We're having sound issues tonight, and I don't like it.
Forwards.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can now. Yeah.
Right, I definitely hadn't done anything, and I'm purposely on my phone so that I don't have network issues. So I'm definitely blaming the platform this time.
I was going to say for you and Cal, it's probably the platform. But anyway, Penix.
So anyway, first of all, you're getting paid a lot of money, so you do what you're told. Now we realize that doesn't happen a lot in the NFL. It's very player driven, right? And like what did we expect him to say? Like, yeah we're going to trade him. Like because what I automatically does is that says to the NFL, we are happy for you to come and bend us over.
Yeah,
right. That's
yeah,
it. That's what it
does.
says, right? And you have to keep
Can't trade him
face.
either.
Well, you can if he agrees to it.
Well, he agrees to it.
Yeah, exactly. Right
Yeah.
now, if Kirk Cousins is acceptant of the fact that he's not the same player and that he is now officially a QB2 to a second year rookie. If
Yeah,
Kirk Cousins is saying, yep, cool, I'll stay and I'll pick up a paycheck for another year until I become cuttable, right?
yeah,
Um, we really thinking that that's like ever a position that the Falcons are going to go on record and say that's it. So first of all, I think it's really easy to look at that and go, um, it's a silly thing to say. It's
yeah,
not. It's saying, look, he's our QB. We're paying for him, and I think I said this a couple of weeks ago, and I'm going to reiterate it. This quarterback class is awful. And
yeah,
on top of that, last year's quarterback class was unbelievable, right? So you've got now a lot of QB needy teams, and last year I think it was very telling that teams had done their homework. You know, we all said, oh, Penix and Nix will probably go in in the second round. They've proved that they absolutely are first round QBs, in my
yeah,
opinion. Nick surprised me the most. So I'd quite happily eat humble pie as I did with Joe Burrow, right? Who's now one of my favorite NFL QBs. So I am I am more than confident. Now, don't get me wrong. I think we are going to have to eat a hit. We will,
yeah,
without a shadow of a doubt, right? Um, but that's taking a risk in the NFL. We knew that there was always a risk with Kirk Cousins and that injury. We knew that. We talked about it in this podcast, right? So, um, for me, I can see him probably landing either in New York or in Cleveland. I think those are two genuine possibilities for really QB needy teams.
yeah,
Um, and we'll have to eat a little bit. We'll have to, reap what we sow in that regard. Luckily, Penix won't cost us as much, so I think that is the sparkling diamond in the cesspit there. But I mean, apart from a cap hit, I don't think we need to be worried about that. I think they're just playing the game,
yeah.
and I fully expect Kirk to be somewhere else come training camp next year.
Nice and easy. Liam, you leaning the same way?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very confident that will probably happen. I mean, at this point, they're not going to come out. Well, they can't come out and say anything else realistically, because obviously if they come out and say, like, we're going to offload him or whatever, like in terms of like a trade, if they've not agreed to waive the no trade clause at this point with Cousins, then they can't come out and say we're going to trade him, because Cousins will be like, no, excuse me, no, you're not. I haven't agreed to anything.
Yeah.
So unless that conversation's already happened, they can't actually say it, because you're already basically claiming you're going to do something that contractually you can't do until he agrees it. I imagine as soon as they agree that, and I think they will agree that, then the whole tune will change, and they'll be looking to afford him to whoever they can afford him to, and they're going to get absolutely nothing for him.
No.
Like, realistically, we'll get something, but I mean, it's not going to be something of any sort of value to
No.
really. It's just the way that everyone knows what position we're in. Everyone knows that Penix is going to be our guy moving forward. Cousins dropped off massively. Doesn't actually carry that higher value as a player anymore. Never mind the situation.
Yeah.
So we just have to take it as it is and get whatever we can possibly get.
Yeah.
If we need some kind of competition for him to get anything even remotely good, but I don't know if that'll develop. It could develop. There's enough teams out there that need a QB to develop, but maybe you could realistically, you probably look at some of the other backups around the league and possibly even claim that they might be a better option than Cousins at this point if he plays like he was for us.
Yeah.
Sort of end, like there could be many options that teams see as free agents that are better than him. Some people might go, oh, we can revive him and that was just a blip or whatever. But for me, looking at his last whatever performances, 4 or 5 performances, it didn't look like a blip, did it?
No, it didn't.
No.
It didn't.
No.
Yeah.
But look, but I guess a few years ago you probably would have said Joe Flacco was finished, right? And I just I think there's a place for Kirk somewhere. I think I genuinely do, right? And I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't think it's anywhere that he's gonna be chasing the Super Bowl ring. But again, I just think that there are too many QB needy teams out there. And to reiterate, you ain't got any starters out of the box in this draft. You haven't. And if anybody out there believes that Shadur Sanders is an NFL QB, yeah, that is wild to me. But listen, I just think that there will be a lot of teams out there, to Liam's point, that will go, you just need to revive it. He'll be fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not concerned. We've just got to be prepared to eat that word that Carl was asking if it was a swear word earlier on.
Before the show.
Yes.
So Cal, do you reckon we can get the pick that we lost for him back, seeing as we got done for tapping up?
What did we lose? Was it a second or third?
A third. We ain't
No,
getting a third.
We're gonna
give me a seventh.
I was gonna say, if any teams have got 2 7th-round picks, we'll take them. Both of them.
We are genuinely pick low
Poor.
this year, though. So anything we can get is a bonus. But yeah, I'd be very shocked if it's anything more than middle to low end, and I don't think it's going to be numerous.
No, it won't be, and I would imagine it'll be something like a pick swap deal. So like we might pick up a 4th and give away a 7th or something like that. It's again, it's not going to be value rich, and you're right. We're not pick rich either this year, which I still think that there are pieces on this team that you could deal this season. I really, really do, and we go into that in another show. But I genuinely believe that if you are potentially looking to rebuild this defense in quite a defense-rich draft, on top of whatever we get for Kirk, I think we have to address it, because we're not exactly cap rich this year either.
No, not at all. Not at all. Continuing with the thought of change then, Mr. Jimmy Lake has been, he's been sacked. He's been fired. He's out the door. I was contemplating finding a way to say that a little bit nicer, but he's gone us. Cal, have you had the opportunity to assess anyone that you want to bring in place of him, or are you on the Salah bandwagon, or what's your thinking?
I think that the main people I've heard is Salah and Ulbridge. That was with us last time. Which
yeah.
I'm not really in favour of that, but whatever they go with, I'll back whoever they bring in. I'm not,
no, of course,
against anyone, but I feel like it'd be good to have someone who's never been in the organisation. It would just bring them something different. Salah's probably, like I think Liam said the other day, he's gone for the Raiders head coach job, maybe. I think he has. I don't know if he's going to go for a few others as well. So I don't think we will get him, but if we do, I think that'd be a massive benefit. Apart from that, I wouldn't have a clue. Mark and Liam probably have a few other names that have been thrown about, but for me, if we could get him, he's the main target, and if we could get him.
Yeah. Go on, you two. I'll let you two debate it out. I've got a list of the favourites in front of me at the moment in time, but I'll let you throw your names into the hat first.
I mean, for obviously, like, people will say that's the number one target, I would imagine, for any defensive coordinator leading team right now.
Yeah.
I'd say some potential head coach teams as well. Obviously, he got fired, so he didn't exactly thrive in that scenario. But not many people do in that, so he might not be that bad. But so yeah, I think I did see that the 49ers were talking about having him back, which obviously a huge success there. So I would imagine that even if like the Vegas head coach doesn't develop, I'd be shocked if he didn't look at his time at San Francisco and go, yeah, I'll go back to doing a bit of that. If that's on the table for him, which the rumors say that it is. I'm trying to think of who else. I think Brandon Staley's not got a job. Has he got a job at all? I don't know.
No, he hasn't got a job.
But he was obviously didn't really go very well at Los Angeles as a head coach, but he was good for them previously. So he's another one of them who, as a coordinator, he's basically like Sauer. As a coordinator, like, did some good stuff. As a head coach, didn't. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't go back to being a really good defensive coordinator, like you can. But ultimately, it's about the fit, isn't it? We've seen a prime example of this is Jimmy, who we just let go of. Like, there are a lot of coordinators are very set in their scheme, and they will just stick to this scheme. And if this scheme doesn't work, they just carry on sticking to that scheme until we either get sacked or some miracle happens. So we should be evaluating it on the basis that we need somebody whose scheme is going to match our personnel right now.
Yeah.
Yes, we can make some changes to that personnel, but ultimately you can't overhaul the defense in the season. So we've got some good players, so we wouldn't really want to. So we need somebody that's going to be able to, he's got a proven scheme that's going to work with the type of players that we've got. And that's the kind of guy I target. It might not be a name that everybody's like a Seller or a Staley. It might not be like a big sort of name like that, but I don't mind as long as he's somebody that can get the best out of what we've got. And what we've got is it's not in the bottom end. It's certainly not in the bottom end of the NFL. Like, I'd have it in personnel wise, I'd have it towards the top half in most position groups. So yeah, I think there'd be a good opportunity for somebody there as a coordinator. So I'd like to think there's interest, but we might not get some of the top guys just because of other interests. Yeah,
makes perfect sense. Mark, you look like you've been thoroughly analysing.
No, so I'll be honest with you. I had to do my research on the fly today. I think I think there's pros and cons of looking at Ulbrich. I think obviously he was originally a linebackers coach, and I feel like linebacker is an area that we need to improve massively. Although his defenses do tend to blitz quite less than probably we want to see. So I'm not quite sure whether do I think it's better than Jimmy Lake? Yes. Does it fill me with anything? Not hugely. But again, it's better than what we've had. I think the other name that sort of maybe piqued my interest a little bit was Steve Wilkes. I think he was really unfairly sacked from the Niners. I actually think it was Kyle Shanahan's scapegoat for choking again. So I
heard that one before.
And I always love to see Kyle Shanahan choke, but it's
probably harsh for the season.
No. The North remembers, mate. The North remembers. So I wouldn't be adverse to Steve Wilkes. I think he's he's obviously from the Shanahan coaching tree. So working with Raheem, they'll be working in a familiar system.
Yeah.
So I think that feels to me like a better fit. I am thoroughly 100%, like if I could turn back time and offer Robert Salah the amount of money that we offered Kirk Cousins to come and be our DC, then I'd do it tomorrow. He is firmly my number one candidate. However unlikely I think it might be.
Yeah.
But I also think we missed the trick with not picking up Brian Flores, and the Vikings are reaping the rewards for that. So yeah, for me, I think if not Salah, which it probably isn't, Steve Wilkes would probably be the top of my list. Personally, I think it's a better scheme fit, and in tune with what Raheem has always done in his defenses. So yeah, for me, I guess it can't be any worse than going toe to toe with the Panthers in the last game and still coming up short. So yeah, give me just give me somebody who's going to get this defense organized. And
Yeah.
if it out of the candidates that I've seen, bar Robert Salah, Steve Wilkes got to be the guy for me.
Nice. Well, you absolutely all blitzed my list. The only one that you missed out, and to be honest, I'd be lying if I had too much intel on him, is Sean Desai, who is the defensive assistant for the LA Rams at the moment in time. Obviously, the McVay link there, so I don't know whether that's a feasible one. He's fifth favorite at the moment in time, presumably looking for a head defensive coach role as opposed to being an assistant. So there's a possibility there. I don't know on the likelihood. And of course, it all comes down to availability of other teams. We seem to be pretty steady this year. There's teams all over the place pinging the head coaches off and pinging the whole coaching staff off. So I think even though we're a little bit inviting in terms of our position in the NFL, we're also not going to be able to offer a head coach role to anyone, and half of those people are probably going to be in that head coach interview cycle before they start looking down the board, I reckon.
Who's favourite?
Yeah, who are favourites?
Favourite is odds speaking, and I won't mention the company because we'll get done for it. Wilkes is favourite at the moment in time, with Ulbrich second.
I have seen a fair few names kicking about. I think the one that I seen that was a bit weird was I can't remember his name. He was the Bengals DC, which I thought was wild because the Bengals have not been known for good defense for quite some time. So I thought that was a bit of a wild one. And yeah. There was another one apart from Brandon Staley and his name, Dennis Salad. So again, these kind of feel like, right, a lot of these coaches that we're talking about, they're all like kind of ex-head coaches that couldn't be head coaches and are good coordinators, right? And I'm not saying any of the names that we've spoke about are bad coaches, right? Like Wilkes, Staley, even Dennis Allen, to be fair. They're all coaches that, they're not very good head coaches, but, again, if you think back to, and I know he was a little bit controversial, and I know I've already mentioned him, but if you think back to Brian Flores, right, and the Vikings took a punt on him, and that defense is disgusting. And in terms of when we were going into the season, everyone was looking at that Vikings team like, oh, that's a top 5 pick team, and they have been outstanding. They and Flores has coached up so many of those players, and genuinely I know I say it a lot, but coaching matters so much. And you're talking about a few DCs there who've had a rough time at head coach level, who can now get back to what they do best. They're all defensive-minded coaches. So maybe we shouldn't be as quick to say not to Keane, mainly because actually what sticks in our mind more is how bad they did as head coaches. And they did something good to get there, right?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's going to be interesting, right? But like, as I said earlier on, it can't get any worse than what was sometimes last season.
Dennis Allen would be an interesting hire, wouldn't he? Like,
I mean,
15 years at the Saints or whatever it was to the Falcons.
yeah, but the thing that I said, how many years? And Liam, I mean, obviously you and I have watched for a few more, right? But how many years has that Saints defense just been nasty? Just
Oh yeah, I mean,
like
It has.
it and disgustingly nasty at times. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm not suddenly loving
We
up
ain't
to the
talking about the
Saints,
stomps and stuff.
but no. But it just we need some grit. We need to change this defensive frailty that we have, and
Yeah.
and I do think it's almost mindset, and that's why again I'm not going to go too deep into it in this episode, but I think that there's some long-standing people in that locker room that you could just get rid of for me, because
Yeah.
I'm not seeing enough fight on that other side of the ball, and that should be our scariest side of the ball. That should be when offenses come on the field. You're terrified, and at this minute in time, why would you be terrified of our defense?
Absolutely, you would not.
I'm not making too much of a case for Dennis Allen. I just want to put that out there. But all I'm saying is that it's very easy for us to go, oh yeah, but he was at the Saints for a while. Yeah, but he coached some absolutely, boresome, horrific behavior in certain stints. Some really, really gritty defenses, and I think that has to be what we look to replicate.
Yeah, without a doubt. Christie's comment here leads me straight into my next segment, which is we need some aggressive, bigger, faster, and mainly uninjured players. The uninjured is key there. So my next question was going to be, whether it be draft or free agency, what couple of positions are you all going to be looking to pick up the most? Of course, it is very reliant on who stays and who goes. There's a lot of change to happen, and I understand it's very early to be asking this, but based on what you've seen last season and what we're currently dealing with, what kind of positions are you looking at?
Probably one of the positions is probably the position we probably wanted for the last 10 years of this franchise's history. I don't think I even need to say it from the edge. It did improve in the last few games with the amount of sacks we've got, etc. But let's be honest, we were still bottom of the sack pile once again. That was like 3 out of the last 4 or 5 years, or something like that. So round 1 has to be defense if we do draft. Round 2 has to be defense. Round 3 probably could still be defense or offensive line for me. Just with Matthews getting slightly on a bit.
So we've got 5 picks, and you're using 5 picks on defense, basically.
I mean, we're laughing, but
why not?
No, it's completely serious. Yeah.
I'm fully aligned to that.
Yeah, with the O-line, maybe just for someone for the future.
Yeah.
But,
no, I see that.
I'd rather still go defense if it came up. Free agency wise, or like obviously anyone who's in the league now, I wouldn't really have a clue. Couldn't really pick any names out at the moment. But with our cap as well, I think it depends on what's going to happen with Kirk, and then they'll add everything up and then see what they can get in free agency as well. So
it is very early to be talking about free agents when nobody's really a free agent yet. So we need big lists and stuff like that first to see. Liam or Mark, go on, you go. You had a point ready to go.
No, I totally agree with Carl. I think this has to be a huge a huge swing on defense. And there are some there are some notable free agents. I think it, to your point, Danny, it depends more on cap space, where do we want to strengthen, etc., etc. just to build on Carl's point, I agree. I think Edge has to be in there. For me, linebacker needs to be addressed, and also we still haven't really sorted out that cornerback 2 area.
I think you're being quite nice there, saying we haven't still really. We've not. Players can play well there, and that's one thing. But actually having a cemented cornerback 2 is a very different thing.
And don't get me wrong, right? The whole Justin Simmons thing, right? Like it was just because it was what was available. There wasn't a cornerback available of his quality to play a cornerback, so we went with the next best thing, right? And then we just tried to scheme our way through it.
Yeah.
You know, and I get that, but you know, again, defense heavy draft, some swings that we're going to have to take, but for me, you know, there's so many spots that I would let, and maybe not as many people talking about it. I think we need to seriously consider moving Grady to the outside and going to get a big boy, a big, huge run stuffer, because the amount of times that teams ran straight up the middle unchallenged against us this season is diabolical. And I'm not saying
for a little while now.
I'm not saying Grady's finished, but there is regression, whether we like it or not, right? And if that's down to Jimmy Lake, then that will become very apparent very, very quickly. But that the middle of that defensive line needs to be addressed, and it needs to be addressed with some weight, in my view.
Yeah.
You get a big boy. You get a big boy, even a 2-down guy if he has to be, right? But you know, if we need to address this, we've been saying it for ages. There is not enough cushion in that defensive line for me to really, you know, take up some of the oxygen in between that front 3, front 4. So it might not be top of the list, but it's a need for me for sure.
Yeah, I'll take that. Liam, any advances?
Yeah, I mean, I would say definitely the corner's quite high on my list of needs, I would say. You know, I definitely agree with Bart. We need that sort of defensive tackle. I mean, in theory, I don't want to say like we kind of should have. Well, we drafted 2 of them last year. Big chunky lads. Well, actually 3 of them, but one of them's gone. Big chunky lads who obviously Rook kind of is a unit who hasn't really got quite going into it yet, and Dawes, who definitely didn't get going. They're both big. They're both defensive tackle players. You know, that could step into a key role for us a little bit there. I don't know what their ability will be like, because we haven't brought them in to rush the. Well, I hope we haven't brought in to rush the quarterback. I know Dawes could do it a little bit, but he's a bit more like a Jarrett sort of build. But you know, ultimately those guys should help us at least on that defensive line if we can get some production out of them. So I'm hoping that could already be addressed, but we don't know, because we still don't know what we're going to get from those guys and how we can use them.
Yeah.
The Dawes situation is still, to me, one of the biggest enigmas of our season. Like,
mind-boggling.
Don't get it, and I almost kind of pray it was just Jimmy Lake being silly.
Not something right. Just not, yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you there, Liam.
Yeah. And I think, you know, receiver's a bit of a tricky one. Obviously, we sort of, if you'd have asked us what we did talk about it at the start of the season, like we said, we were not really very happy with the overall quality of our receiving group going into this year. Obviously, we've been surprised by Mooney and by Ray McLeod. I think they both performed above the expectation. Obviously, like London, we knew we we were going to get production from him. But those other two have obviously performed above probably where we were expecting. Is that good enough for us long term? Maybe not. I don't know what will happen with Rondell Moore, because I'm pretty sure he was only on a 1-year contract anyway, and obviously he got injured for the entire season. Like, will we look to give him another shot? I don't know. No idea. I think the draft is a not bad position for a receiver, usually in those middle sort of rounds. That's one of the positions where I'm a little bit more confident you can sort of get a guy. Like, if we were taking sort of like 5th round corners and pass rushers, I'd be a little bit more like, I'm not sure about that. Receivers, one you can hit on a little bit more often than others. Not to say that they'll be good, but you've got more chance. So I'd like to see us maybe address that. The interesting one's going to be that first pick in the draft, and obviously what we can do in free agency with the money that we've got this season. I would expect that that pick will be either on that defensive line or at corner at a push. Linebacker maybe, but I think they're the positions that we've got to address, which are all defense.
I think the one thing that I would add to that, and obviously we'll do a show close at the draft. I wouldn't be surprised, because I think, like, considering the season that we've had, we're only at the 15th pick, so there could be a fair amount of value if there are pieces on the board that people might be after, to trade back and see what else we can get.
Yeah, I think that, obviously, like you said, early doors, but that seems very logical when we've not got much wiggle room with our picks. Then if you can get bit of value for a pick, but like you said, it's kind of dependent who's on the board, because it's not quarterback heavy. So we're going to have to be a little bit more reliant on teams really wanting some other players.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's a possibility. Just before we move on, there's a little one from Electrify, a regular listener, that's actually quite a valid point. A position I'll be interested to see what happens with is the kicker. Patterson wasn't good enough for me, so do we go back to Koo or try and change it up? Where do we all stand on the kicker debate at the moment in time?
I think Koo obviously stays, he's still got a contract, and for the stuff he's done in the past for us, but they'll definitely be trialing out kickers throughout the offseason, I think. I just don't see why not. You wouldn't anyway. But I wouldn't ever be drafting a kicker, except if there's some undrafted free agents at the end of it, which, to be fair, a lot of teams do it, and there's obviously some good kickers in the college game, so I feel like we will definitely bring one or two in.
Yeah, I think the difficulty you got is he's got a hip injury, right? So, like, is it an injury that is gonna, is going to be a bit longer lasting and affect his range? And the true nature of kickers is that, look, you can hit on a good one out of nowhere, just like we did with Koo, and you might get a few years out of them. I seem to remember a kid who played for the Colts a few years ago. He looked really, really weird. He had these massive glasses. Rodrigo Blankenship, I think his name was. And like, first season in the league, everyone thought he was amazing. He lasted a few games into last season. Gone. Never been seen since, as far as I know. So you just kind of go, you'd be, I don't know, you'd kind of be like a bit silly for my money to be wasting a roster spot on a second kicker when you've got one that I don't really think is showing anything apart from he was carrying an injury this year. Unless he comes into camp and he's that inconsistency continues. But I'm not sure that kicker is really going to be that high on the list, because what you got to remember is that it's all very well and good trialing these kids out. I think they'd probably trial kickers out every year. If they're not better than what we've got, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Because you're not going to take you're not going to take two kickers into the 53 man. Do you know what I mean? So that's that's where I stand.
No chance.
I think it's it's a non-point.
Yeah, that'll do for me. So we've got a little bit of negativity out of the way. Just what we think we're going to do heading into the off season. Yeah. So let's top this show off with our Atlanta Falcons. I don't even know if to call them awards when we've had an underwhelming season. Awards, so we'll do it a little bit reverse order. So we'll start with Rookie of the Year. And for all of our viewers, we were initially going to do Defensive Rookie of the Year and Offensive Rookie of the Year. But our rookies have featured so little that there really wasn't the capacity to do that and to be able to actually debate. So we just summarized it in one. So guys, if you all give me your name and then we'll break them down a little bit if we need to debate it. I'm happy to start on this one. And it's a man that played 3.5 games in Michael Penix, because we were pretty hands tied. And I think the concept of him, of what he did at the back end of that season for our future, made him my Rookie of the Year, just because I see what he can become. Any advances?
No.
Okay.
I mean, two of them injured for the entire season, which doesn't help. And then one was injured for, we sort of appeared at the end of the season. So realistically, you could either pick Penix or Bertrand at a push.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it was a...
Oh, Roo played like...
He played about one snap, I think. But maybe...
yeah. Well, Liam, come on. He didn't play one snap, but it's...
Not many.
No.
He actually played all right as well.
He did all right.
He got a sack as well, didn't
he? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did he? Yeah,
I think so.
He might have.
Wow, we're really scraping the barrel here, boys. So, for me, for me, I think you're not getting away from. It has to be Penix. I think that there was a lot of frustration around, obviously not about losing Trice so early in the season. I think that I think that would have been an interesting rookie to watch. And obviously, like I said, those kind of two D-line pieces never really got going under Lake for whatever reason. And either that's Lake's poor coaching or Terry's poor drafting. And I suppose that very much remains to be seen. But I think, and I said this at the beginning of the show, so I'll just say this again. He kind of gave me faith that we've got a future, and there was nothing.
Yeah.
There was very, very little, that concerned me when watching. Like I remember. When we were kind of getting ready for Ridder, and every time he had the ball, boys, we were terrified. Penix's decision making was top class. His arm was top class, and he seems like a kid who's got his head screwed on. And what more can you ask for? And when we sat here and debated, was it the right move? Was it the right pick? Yes, it was, and I'm very, very happy that that pick was made, because if it hadn't have been, I think our franchise would have been on the verge of self-combustion.
Self-destruction. Just going to jump into the comments a little second. We've got Paul saying, why is it not loading up? There we go. Says a lot about class went when a player that played less than a quarter of the season is the only option. It really does. It's a rough one to take. But these things happen. It's not the end of the world. On to the next. The only thing that does scare me a little bit is if Terry sticks to best player available and goes for some random offensive tool in the draft, and then we have to deal
I don't think he can do that this year. I think he's got to change his way this year. Yes.
I'll believe it when I see it, mate.
Yeah, I do. I was going to say just on the pick situation, I'll make a statement that if we'd have used, and I did have a whinge about this when we actually did it, as you probably can remember, but I do believe that if we'd have used our second round pick differently, we'd be in the playoffs right now.
Oh,
if we'd have drafted Newton, who else knocked us out of playoff contention, over Rook, we'd have had a player whose production has been up 150 times more than Rook, and we'd have had an extra third round pick to do with something else with.
Can I challenge that slightly?
Probably not.
Well, I can try. So we've seen a guy who we traded up for, and a promising fourth round guy that was considered a bit of a steal at the time, not see any field time hardly all season under the current DC. What is it that you think would have been different this year? Do you think that the Rook and Dawlis are purely down to them, or was it down to the coach's decision to hold them back?
I think players like Dawlis, I can sort of understand. Rook, they were very up on him. They traded up to get him. They took him in the higher round. I would have thought that would mean he can play a part this season. Not going to say he's just going to be an absolute wrecking ball in his first season, because that's not
for sure.
Goes. But I would have expected either he wasn't ready. They thought he was ready, and that's why they did it, and he wasn't, or they knew he wasn't ready, and they took him knowing that he's a project and he's probably going to be ready in a couple of seasons, which is not a massive issue if you're a team that can afford to do that. Either of those decisions though seems strange to me when a guy was still on the board who most people said was more NFL ready. Isn't got to get you could surpass him in the future. I agree. But he proved himself to be NFL ready with his performances for the Commanders. He played every game. He was productive. He was very solid. He stopped the run. He got a couple of sacks. That, if obviously not to say that he would have produced those numbers playing for us, because it's different schemes and everything. But if he even produced like 3/4 of that production in our team, we'd have been in the playoffs with those numbers.
Yeah, I appreciate what you're saying. I do. I'm just not 100% sure that we would have seen him get the same amount of snaps under Jimmy Lake, because it felt to me like all season they wanted to run with that front three regardless. So
maybe
I think it's one of them things. Hindsight's 20/20, right? But different coaches can get different things out of different players. I don't think I think if we had have gone with Newton, I'm not sure that they would have implemented him in like the Commanders have, and I don't think the Commanders had much choice, right? Because they were like, we've drafted all these guys, we just have to start them.
Yeah. I mean, everybody said though that obviously the whole point of the shock around him still being there at that point was he looked like a guy to scouts and pro scout level who was ready to go in terms of his skill set. So that would have either said that he probably was, which he kind of showed he has, and if we'd have gone, oh well, we'd have drafted this guy who everybody knew looked like he'd dropped way beyond where he should have gone. Everyone was talking about him being ready for the NFL. He's got the production, he's got all the tools, and then we go, oh, we're not going to play him that much. There's a bit uproar. Like, I feel like if we'd have, with the performances, especially with our defense, if we just had this guy sat there who everybody believed was good to go, we played other options and looking soft, surely we'd have gone to him at least partway through the season.
Yeah, maybe. I'm just,
but I would have thought we would have done that with Rook, to be honest.
and again, like I'm a big believer in something in work and try something different, and I looked at that defense a million times, and we talked about it week in, week out, why are like adjustments and all of that sort of stuff. And I don't know, like listen, I'm in full agreement with you that if we had have taken him and played him, but I didn't see anything from Lake to suggest that he really wanted to trust in rookies this season. And I'm just shooting the breeze, but I'm just
fair point, well made.
Because that would have been that. I mean, let's face it, lads. Right? If there was ever a total Falcon thing to do, would be to draft a guy who is ready and still not play him.
Yeah, probably.
Not use him anyway.
Yeah.
Lovely stuff. On to the next category. But first things first, Carrie in the comments says, hit the like button, everyone. Whether you're subscribed or not, hit like. Whether you're on Facebook or X or anywhere, just get involved. Click subscribe, follow us on all the socials. You know the job. Hey, love that.
I know. Started happening when I was on FaceTime the other day.
On to the next category. We've got 3 more left, and we'll not take too long on them because I know everybody's got bedtimes. Defensive Player of the Year for everyone. Please give me your nomination. Liam, I'm letting you start.
This was much more difficult to decide, but I eventually came to Caden Ellis.
Yeah,
I just think
okay.
There was a few players I could have picked who've had good seasons, but I think Caden Ellis stood out a little bit above the rest for me. Just his consistency, the numbers he put up, leadership, coverage and sacks. Yeah, like he played the full bag, didn't he, this season?
He did.
So I think he was certainly one of the brightest sparks on the defense.
Yeah, fair enough. Mark, who's your nomination?
Well, Liam just stole mine. So, but I'll go with number 2. Listen, lads, it's not a big pool to pick from. But I'll go with number 2, which was a guy who I finally seen some progression from, and progression that I liked, and hopefully, this is the start of him becoming the player that we really hoped that he would be. And I think this scheme suits him a little bit more. And for me, it's going to go to Arnold Abichetti. I've seen a lot more. Yeah. Seen a lot more comfort in the scheme when we were pushing that pressure. And I still think that we should have pushed it more. But he looked sharper than Judon did quite a lot of last season. And even if anything, he becomes we go in, we bring Trice back, and, maybe we go and get a big edge out the draft or whatever. That is a player there that, the more people that you've got on the team and the more rotation you've got to be able to generate sacks, can only be a good thing. So I was going to go with Ellis, but I think that Abichetti is least worthy of an honourable mention, because I think we were all maybe coming into the season thinking he was a bit of a bust, and I'm still think the jury's out on that. So let's go, AK.
I like that one. I like that one. We'll put it to a vote on the socials after we've got our nominations in. Cal, who's yours? Doesn't matter if it's a double up, but if you steal mine, I'm going
It's
to.
it's a double up. It's Ellis. I think it was
Okay.
quite clear that it was going to be him. His stats were like unbelievable for what he did, especially in a team that struggled throughout the whole game and defensive. He was the only sort of bright spot throughout most games, to be fair, even when we thought we spoke about, oh, that something needs to change, he was the one that every game took it to the death and performed. So yeah, he definitely he's got to be defensive player of the year for me.
Nice, fair enough. We'll take that one. Nobody's stolen mine then. I was going to go for our Pro Bowl alternative of Jesse Bates. There was a little lull in the middle of the season, and I am very aware of that. But the lull did happen when the rest of the team also fell to pieces. I think when you look at his stats across the season in terms of his interceptions and his forced fumbles and all that jazz, he's just performed well. Obviously, he's on big dough compared to a lot of the players, so you do expect performances like that. But I don't think that takes away from the fact that he has been a very good signing. When it was him and Simmons coming in, we didn't really know what we were in for between them because we got very hyped on them as a pair as opposed to as individuals. I think Bates walked away with a victory in that one if you're putting them up against each other. So I'm going to go for Mr. Bates.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair shout. I think the introduction of Simmons because they were two players that played in the same position. Sometimes they kind of cancel each other out. I don't think that secondary was anywhere near as good as it should have been this year. But I certainly wouldn't be. He certainly wouldn't be a guy on that defense that I'd be looking to shop. He's a leader, and a defensive captain for a reason. So I think that's definitely a fair one, Danny.
Perfect. So we'll put that to the vote on socials. Two more left. Offensive Player of the Year. Your nominations, please, in reverse order. So, Cal, go ahead with yours first.
This is always a tricky one because it's like the MVP is. I try doing it to different players.
They overlap a lot, don't they? Yeah.
So, but I've gone with they are both different, but it could have been who the MVP is. But I'm going to go with Drake London for my offensive player of the year. He starts 1,271 yards, 9 touchdowns. He's dealt with 2 quarterbacks throughout the year. He's still performed at a very high rate. He could have probably got a few more yards, especially in them games where we did absolutely nothing. No fault of his own. He's the player that we drafted. It looks like he's improving and improving. He's just got to get better, especially with Penix behind the ball for the next few years. The only other player I'm going to mention is Mooney for me because he came in as everyone not slaughtered him, but not many people was high on him. He's 900. He's 8 yards short of 1,000 yards for this year, 5 touchdowns. He pulled us out the shitter at times, especially with some of the big plays he made. So just a memorable mention for him.
Yeah. I'm gonna go Mark. You look like you're sitting on one.
I mean, it can only be the one, the only. My guy who I campaigned for in that draft, Mr. Bijan Robinson.
Nice.
For me, I was never in doubt that we drafted a special player. He is, without a shadow of a doubt, one of the most exciting running backs in the NFL. He showed it week in, week out, done everything he possibly could. Even got involved in blocking sometimes, which, considering his height, is absolutely bananas. Just great professional, always stayed positive, pulled off some unbelievable plays. I think he was like third highest yards in the regular season. Like, there's not even a question for me. Caught plenty of passes as well. Guy's special. Hope he's a Falcon forever. Big up number 7. Has to be Bijan.
Nice. Kind of thought that one was coming, not going to lie. Liam, who have you gone for?
I'm going to go for Mooney. It was going to be London or Mooney in this spot. London was, obviously produced fantastically well, but like Cal said, I think I'm picking Mooney just because of the unexpected element. And last season, in particular, like the main thing I was shouting about on this pod was we didn't have a guy who could hit those sort of like middle zones and also take the ball in hand. Like Dre London, he's not slow, but he's more of a physical guy. But Mooney can do it after the catch.
Yeah.
And also he averaged like 15, like nearly 16 yards a reception. Mooney this season, like 20 plus 20-yard receptions. Like it's just exactly what we needed that we just didn't have last season. Like we just didn't have that guy you can just go to downfield who will just take the ball and get you an extra 5, 6, 7 yards every time he catches it. He made some big catches. And he's just all round very, very solid for us as a player. I believe that he had talent, but I didn't expect him to be quite as productive as he has been. So he's my pick for the surprise element.
Nice. Take that. I like the variety with this one, but like you all covered, he's a shock to the system. Very to low expectations and then perform like that. I think you just notice that little bit more than when you do. We kind of expect it from London and players of that stature. So for someone to come in, they're like, is he a wide receiver 2? Is he even a 3? And then actually end up arguably receiver 1 at parts during the season, then you cannot criticize that at all. My vote, I think I've gone for the same voting path as Cal. I've gone for London for this award because my MVP is different. Same foundations as Cal. I think he's just growing year on year. And he is a wide receiver 1 now. Obviously, he's had a really circumstances in the quarterbacks that have been behind him throughout the years. But I just think he's finding himself that little bit. He's a big lad. He gets involved in the blocks as well. Seen him do some dirty work, which I really like from wide receivers. So I could not give it to anyone but Drake for this one. Which brings us on to the final award of the season, which is the MVP. 95% of the time, these go to quarterbacks. We can't do it. Just can't do it. So, Liam, who have you gone for as your MVP?
Well, it's probably going to be pretty obvious. I could have gone for London, I suppose, but my MVP will go to Bijan. Just because his numbers were great. He performed consistently, especially the last half of the season. He was just carry us at times, and just produces things that out of nowhere that you need. He just gets you those sort of like 6, 7 yards of production by making a guy miss. And I still think he's got another gear, which is kind of what's worrying for everybody else. What he's not doing right now is hitting those big 50, 60 yard runs that you can see Barkley do like 3 or 4 times a season. But he's got that in his locker. It's just that he hasn't really produced that yet. So when he produces that, which I believe he will, alongside the stuff that he's already doing, like he's going to be a frightening prospect. And he's already, one of the best receiving backs ever in college. And he's added to our receiving game as well, which is just another that's like your Christian McCaffrey sort of level of production, where he was, the best receiver back probably the week's seen. Anybody who's got that as an extra element is just a special talent, and he's hopefully he's just gonna keep thriving with us. And we've got an Algier type player to back him up and be that battering ram, which I'm sure Bijan would agree complements him very well when he needs that break, and he's got somebody to go and wear that defense down, and Algier can do that. Bijan benefits even more, and I'm sure he probably agrees with that. I can't ask him, but I would if I could.
Yeah. Mark, do you want me to just rewind your point about the offensive player of the year and just play, assume, or?
So, no.
No,
I don't want you to. And I thought long and hard about this. And I thought, how would you measure value?
I know where it's going.
Valuable. Yeah. Sometimes the most amount of value you can get is the most amount of profit you earn on a very, very minimal investment. My MVP of this year, who got us out of so many difficult spots this year, for a guy who is meant to be special teams, give me Ray McLeod for my MVP.
Do you know what?
Not one person on this podcast, when we signed him, and even me, and I eat humble pie when it is deserved. That guy has made some tremendous catches, come out of nowhere for something that everyone thought he was just going to be a special teams guy, and we didn't have enough depth at wide receiver. Ray has been there repeatedly. So for me, for such little investment, there's such big value. So he's my MVP. Give me Ray.
I like that. I like the spanner in the works. Christy in the comments is saying Ray over Hodge. Suppose the investment's a similar foundation. That's a fair point. It's a fair point. Cal, are we going to go with some form of normality with your answer?
Yeah, I think we all know what it is. It's got to be Bijan. Don't really need to say much else. Completely agree with what Liam and Mark said. He's got another year. He's only a few years into his NFL career. He'll be smashing records in the next couple of years if he keeps it up like this. 14 touchdowns as well in a team that
in a struggling team.
A struggling teams, even on the offense, was good at times, but we was shocking at times. And 14 touchdowns.
Yeah,
I can't complain. And I think it was like 400 and some receiving yards as well, 400-500. So he's nearly hitting 2,000 yards. Number one for me.
It's not bad going, is it? It's not bad going. I've, of course, really boringly also gone for Bijan Robinson. However, I'm so enticed by Mark's shout that I was thinking about all the other players that have done more than they should have. But I'm not gonna last ditch it now. I'm not gonna step away from my guy. So
I think the other big one is Lindstrom again. He's someone else who's going to go off the offensive line, especially. Lindstrom, once again, probably the most consistent player we've got throughout the whole franchise, I think, after 5, 6 years he's been here.
And I think Cal raised a good point there, which we haven't really touched on. This was another good season from that offensive line.
It really was. Yeah.
And Bijan is special. But again, you know how much I love my big boys up front. I actually think McGarry did a bit better this season. I was terrified to think that he was going to be Penix's blindside blocker. But actually, for the most part, with Penix being left-handed, so your left tackle then becomes your blindside blocker. But again, Bergeron, I think, another strong season. Really, really happy to see how I'm still not convinced on Dahlman. at centre. I think that that and right tackle, as Cal astutely put earlier on, probably does need to think about Jake Matthews' his succession plan at this point. But
Yeah.
I think kind of honourable mention to that O line, because to play as consistently as they did, and they allowed sacks, but they didn't allow, it was far, far, far from a turnstile O line. Those boys did good. I think, Dolman probably average, but everyone else, for me, had a really good season. So I just wanted to make sure that we called out the whole unit of those big beautiful boys up front.
Love that. I love that. Well, there we have it. And we will put it out to the followers to see who they lean towards out of our votes.
I'm
can
very
imagine-
angry that you've all clubbed together on that, so that now the MVP discussion is literally between Bijan and Ray McLeod. Like you guys have totally done me over there.
Not much diversity there, is there?
Because was me expecting, we were gonna at least try and be a little bit of experimental with this
A
conversation.
bit
But
spicy with it. Well, we've got a few comments. We've got Paul saying, "I'm shocked that Kyle Pitts isn't in the shout." So fair enough.
Yeah.
I didn't. Why? When did we vote on worst player of the year? Did we do
Oh no, he watches. What if he watches?
I don't care.
He was-
That guy's out of it.
Oh dear. Right, ladies and gentlemen, that is time on this season's shows. 20 episodes, thousands of views and listens. We capped over 350 live viewers on one of our shows this season, which was absolutely bonkers. Tons of you in the comments over the weeks. So we cannot thank you all enough. It has been a hell of a ride. Not a fun one all of the time. Not always been the best. But I would rather do it with these three boys and you lot watching than on my own. So, boys, any final send-offs to everyone before we cap it off for the season?
Stick with us; it'll happen one day.
yeah, can't be awful forever, can we? I mean, we could, but
yeah, I haven't got forever, Mark.
But I do like. There have been times, especially this year, where I think the frustration is born more out of beating ourselves rather than not beating the opposition. And it's frustration. It's frustrating that we kind of go season to season and we're imbalanced, right? Like we're either good on defense but off on offense, or the other way around, or whatever, right? And sooner or later that has to even out. And
does it?
Same time next year, boys.
Next year.
Like,
we're going up one win a year. So next year we're going to get that nice little 9-8, and we'll just keep edging up. Again, thank you everyone for watching. Paul, thank you for that. We have done another full season now. It's getting silly stuff. Electrify, thank you for finding us, and thank you for watching week in, week out. It's been a pleasure. We will still be doing periodic shows when there's big news or someone gets sacked and stuff like that. But for the week in, week out shows, everybody's going to have a nice little break. Mark's going on tour again. Liam's getting whatever is above a black belt that I don't know anymore. Me and Cal are in Amsterdam in 2 weeks' time, so you might never see us again. But that's where we're up to. Mark, for the final time this season, please break the sound barrier for us.
Guys, we are available to listen to on all social media platforms. You can go back through the Facebook, the Twitter. I'm still refusing to call it X, Elon. Come for me. Instagram, etc. If you're like me and you like to listen to podcasts when you're driving, so you don't have to look at our ugly faces, then we are available on all podcasting platforms: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
My God.
From Danny, Liam, Callum, Mark, thank you for watching this season, and we will catch you next year when it is Super Bowl season. See you next time.
I love it.